Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the first episode of Stick Talks, the series where I will be discussing things that just interest me, hyperfixations and things of that nature and whatnot. So, without further ado, let's hop right in. So, in order to preface this, and I probably should have done this before, I'm gonna draw something really quick. Just bear with me. Okay, that's really ugly, but it'll have to... Why is this not showing up as dark as I would like it? What do I have to move this to the side so my shadow's not there? That looks a bit better, actually. Yeah, I think I'll do it like that. Okay, so this is a... These are 14 circles. And the reason there are 14 is because today we're going to be discussing something I am very passionate about, the Magnus Archives. If you don't know what the Magnus Archives is, I promise you that you have most likely heard something and you have not known that it's from the Magnus Archives. I'll go ahead and I'll play the audio clip right now, just...
You don't sound Russian?
How could I sound anything, silly? I'm plastic. I don't even have a voice box. I had to borrow this one. Don't turn on the light.
So yes, that is from the Magnus Archives. It is a podcast distributed by Rusty Quill. And it is... If you have not listened to it yet, I implore you, I beg of you to please go, stop the video, go listen to it, go watch it. It's, well, not watch, but listen to it. And it's 200 episodes, so it's a bit chunky, but each episode's like 20, 25-ish minutes long, so if you work at a reasonable pace, you can get through it pretty fast. Or you can just binge watch it, binge listen to it, and you'll get it done in like a week, 2 weeks. So, anyways, today we'll be discussing the 14... No, that'll be backwards, won't it? Okay, how am I going to do this? Yeah, that works. We will be getting into spoiler territory here, so I do implore you to please, if you have even the slightest inkling that you want to go listen to this or just experience it for yourself, please just go listen to it. We won't be getting into heavy spoilers, but there will be some. So, we'll be talking about the fears and how they all kind of interconnect to each other and kind of what each one is sort of about. Now, to start, we should probably just talk about the fears. What are they, right? So, the fears are... Matter of fact, let me get a quote. As said later on in the series by a figure who will go unnamed for spoiler reasons, there are entities in this world, beings of vast, dark power. Perhaps it would be more accurate to say they are next to the world, rather than in it. Their true existence could not function in the universe as we live in now. At least not as it is now. They are not within our world, but they can affect it in certain ways, reaching out with their will to change things. I don't know where they come from or how they came to exist, but they are, from what I can determine, effectively eternal. And then that figure gives us an analogy. Imagine you are an ant, and you have never before seen a human. Then one day, into your colony, a huge fingernail is thrust, scraping and digging. You flee to another entrance, only to be confronted by a staring eye, gazing at you. You climb to the top, trying to find escape, and above you, you can see the vast, dark shadow of a boot falling upon you. Would that ant be able to construct these things into the form of a single human being, or would it believe itself to be under attack by 3 different, equally terrible, but very distinct assailants? So, the fears. They, like I said, we're getting into spoiler territory now, so leave while you still can. The fears. They come from kind of this subconscious of both humans and animals, and it's kind of just, well, you know, what the name says, they're the fears that we all experience. At first, the fear was simple. It was blunt, to kind of put it generally. And it was just one whole thing. But then as humans came about and we started to think, and we started like kind of assign different categories to things, fear itself, the thing that was fear, got split into several different things, which are each one of these. All of it's part of fear, but they're each kind of separate, you know? And so I guess that kind of segues us into our first thing, or into our first fear, which is the hunt. So, the hunt, also known as the everchase. The hunt manifests as the fear of being chased. You know, whenever you were a kid and you were on the playground and you were playing tag or something like that, and the tagger was like right behind you, and you knew you weren't in danger. You knew that, like, you know, if they tagged you, oh, you just have to tag someone else. But for just like a split second, you felt that like surge of adrenaline, that fear rush through your veins. That's what the hunt is. The hunt is that fear of being chased, that fear of being prey. And as such, it also manifests in the kind of thrill of predators hunting prey. The hunt has... I might get into avatars in a different video, and I'm definitely going to do the entire, like, story, the lore of Magnus Archives in a different video, because in this one, we're just covering the fears. That's what we're covering. So, where was I? Right, hunt. So, the hunt, it has multiple different kind of avatars. I'm not going to get into that, though. The hunt manifests in the fear of being chased, but also manifests in animals, and like hunters themselves, like, you know, whether it be humans or predators or things like that. And it can also manifest in like kind of that predator-prey dynamic being switched. For example, we see later on in the series that these two hunters that go out, they become hunted by this huge deer thing, at least I think it was a deer, that gored them with its own horns, and yeah, not great stuff. So that's the hunt, right? Now, moving on, connected to the hunt, we have the flesh. The flesh, also called viscera, it is the fear of animals. Like I said, the fears, they come from subconscious of both human and animals. For animals, it is the fear of just being bred for meat. Like, you know, in industry lines where just like animals are just one sack of meat on a conveyor belt moving forward to their inevitable demise. And for humans, it manifests in the fear of us just being bags of meat, right? Not in the fear that we're inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. That comes later. We'll get to that. But in just the fear that at the end of the day, we are just sacks of meat with random electrical signals being pumped through us, right? It can also manifest itself in like butchers, like animal-related industry, bones, meat, like organs and kind of gore-ish stuff, and it's one of the newest of the fears. I hesitate to use that term because the fears as in themselves are kind of wishy-washy. The hunt, we know, was most likely the first because animals were the first. But the fear of flesh, of things like that, is not the newest. We'll get to the newest later. We'll probably get to the newest later. We'll have time, I think. And it came about probably during the Industrial Revolution, because at that point, you know, people were getting caught in machines a lot, and that could obviously lead to a fear of, you know, mangled bodies and whatnot. Yeah. And then next up, after the flesh, we have the web. Oh, those are backwards for you, aren't they? Well, I guess the W and the H are okay. Let me fix the F though. Sorry, this is my first video. Give me a sec. It's a wonky F, it's good enough. Okay, the web. Also known as the spider, the great spider, mother of puppets, the mother, spinner of schemes, and the hidden machination. It is the fear of being controlled, of your actions not being your own, especially if you do not know you're being controlled. Hence why it's also known as the mother of puppets, because, you know, you're being puppeteered. An interesting thing, so this might just be a coincidence, but in my opinion, in a show like the Magnus Archives, where everything is all interconnected and things weave together, kind of like a web. God, that was bad. I don't think this is a coincidence. The only statements we get that are directly web related are from trans people. A trans man and a trans woman, I believe. And I find that very interesting because those are the only two things that are directly web related that we get, that are statements from them. And I choose to view that as kind of like, so trans people are all about controlling how others perceive them, how they want to control how they look, and things like that. And so I kind of choose to view it like the web kind of likes to pick on them, for lack of a better word, because the web is all about control and things like that. I don't know, that's just my headcanon though. Anyways, moving on. The web, it manifests as, obviously, spiders, spider webs, cobwebs, things like that. And the web in and of itself is very interesting because all of the other fears, they are kind of, they can't really think, they can't really plan ahead. They are just kind of primal in what they are. God damn it, my window cover just fell down. Yeah, no, that's that fell down. I'll have to put that back up. Okay. Intermission. Now, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by my window cover falling down. The web was the only one that was kind of gifted with the ability to kind of plan things out and to make elaborate plans that oftentimes span hundreds of years. And we see that in play in the series a little bit. I cannot say further than that, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Also, another interesting thing about the web is that every kind of fear has a ritual, something that they want to have done, or that their avatars, who are human-ish, get done for them, so they can kind of bring them into this world and kind of become a fear factory for them. Throughout history, no rituals have been successful throughout history. And I won't go more into it than that because this video isn't for that. The web, however, doesn't seem to have a ritual, which means that either A, it's planning something out even grander, or B, it likes the world how it is. Also, before I forget, the hunt that I mentioned earlier, they only like the thrill of the chase. They do not like actually getting the prey or anything like that. They only like the thrill of the chase. Now, connected to the web is our next fear. The spiral. The spiral, also known as Esmentrius, which translates to "it is lies." I probably butchered that pronunciation. The twisting deceit, and it is not what it is. The spiral is a fan favorite. It deals with the fear of insanity, of your own mind lying to you, of your mind and senses playing tricks on you. It is a fan favorite as well because of its avatar monster thing, which, again, I'm not doing in this episode. I might do that in a future one, but not in this one. So the spiral can manifest itself in mazes and doors, as well as like fractals and repeating imagery, and obviously spirals. It also kind of like repeating corridors and things like that. Think kind of like back rooms, like endlessly repeating things. Not much more to it than that, unless I'm going to stray into Avatar territory, which I'm not going to do in this video. Yeah, spiral's just a funky little thing. Now getting into our next fear, which is the stranger, also known as the "I do not know you." The stranger is basically the fear of uncanny valley, pretty much. Things that look human but aren't, or that fear of like creeping dread. Think mannequins, wax figures, clowns. Clowns are a big part of it. Yeah, it also can sometimes manifest itself, other than clowns and mannequins, it can sometimes manifest itself as like theater or like stage performances. It has a real thing for like circus and circus kind of stuff. My guess is kind of because of clown related imagery and things, but it has a big thing for that. And it's like, yeah, just uncanny valley, basically. That's the best thing I can use to sum it up. And again, the stranger and the spiral are, we'll get into the end actually of how each one connects to how each one connects to, and why. But the stranger and how each one is different. The stranger and the spiral are unique in their own ways because their avatars are different from the others. Which, oh god, this really makes me want to cover them, but I'll do that in another future episode. So yeah, that's basically the stranger. Which leads us into our next one, which is the eye. And this one has a whole host of other names, so bear with me. Beholding, the ceaseless watcher, it knows you, the great eye that watches all who linger in terror and gorges itself on the sufferings of those under its unrelenting, stuporous gaze. Yeah, that last one's a mouthful. I'm gonna go pick up my marker that fell. Okay, now, the eye. The eye is the fear of having your secrets laid out bare. It is the fear of being known. The fear of being shown to the world, of just being seen. It manifests itself in the form of eyes, video cameras, just being watched by people, the feeling of being watched. It also manifests itself in the form of knowledge, or the pursuit of knowledge, because the eye is all about knowing things, even if those things can be destructive to you. It just is about knowing everything, which is why it's the eye, because it wants to like see and know everything. So yeah, that's the eye, and the eye plays a very big part in the Magnus Archives, which, again, I'm not going to get into spoiler territory, but eye and the web, keep those in mind for probably a later video. Keep them in mind. Alright, moving on to our next one is the Vast, my beloved. The Vast, also known as the Falling Titan, is my personal favorite of the 14, 15 fears, and the reason why we'll get into. The Vast is about the fear of us being inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, about us humans being just little bits of carbon amidst a huge, vast, uncaring universe, right? It is the fear of us just being insignificant, our lives amounting to nothing. And it manifests itself in the sky, the sea, big open spaces, in heights, in storms, lightning, and it's just, it's so good. The Vast is my favorite because I'm a hiker, right? I love to hike, but I only like to hike places that get you high up to where you can like just look out and see like the whole of creation just laid out before you. Which is why I'll throw hands with my family to try and get the window seat on planes, because I'm just seeing everything shrink away from you like that and just putting it all into perspective, I guess. It's comforting, for me at least, which is also another reason why I like roller coasters, because that, like, feeling in your stomach, of just like that falling feeling. The Vast is my favorite. I love it. The Vast, my beloved, and always will be. Enough about that though. Let's get into our next one, which is the Lonely, also called Forsaken or the One Alone. The Lonely is, as you can probably guess, that's backwards. As I was saying, the lonely, as you can probably guess, is the fear of being alone, the fear of being isolated, of being cut off from everyone and everything you know, being cut off from society, just being alone. It manifests itself in fog, big, large rooms, big, empty spaces, which is why it's kind of so linked with the vast. And it also manifests itself, for some reason, in suburbs and large crowds of faceless people. We see those two specific ones only once per each one of those. But it's worth mentioning, at least, right? That leads us on to our next one, which is the Dark, also known as Mr. Pitch or the Forever Blind. The Dark is probably one of the first fears to come into existence, right behind the Hunt, because, you know, predators often lie in wait in the dark. That being said, the Dark is the fear of the dark. Very simple. It manifests itself in darkness, shadow creatures, cold, and like dark waters. It's very simple. There's not much to say about it really. It's one of the more simple ones. Yeah, moving on to our next one. The Buried, also known as the Center, Choke, Too Close I Cannot Breathe, Forever Deep Below Creation. The Buried is the fear of claustrophobia, of suffocating, drowning, not having enough space, of just things being too close around you. It manifests itself in caves, being trapped under the dirt, financial issues, being trapped in coffins. It just likes coffins in general, really. And it also manifests itself as heavy rain, although that might only be related to the one particular statement that appears in. But mainly claustrophobia adjacent things, right? That's the Buried. All right, next one. The Corruption, also known as Filth, the Crawling Rot, or the Flesh Hive. Corruption is the fear of disease, the fear of corruption, the fear of just rot. The fear of your body failing you, pretty much. It can manifest itself in bugs, insects, disease, mold, rot, and it also can manifest itself in unhealthy and toxic relationships, which is very interesting to me. I'm glad that that's kind of the thing that they played into, because, you know, toxic relationships, corruption, they can kind of link together, which I think is very cool that they did that. It also really likes worms. It likes worms a lot. The Corruption is very much kind of, along with flesh, body horror kind of things. Next one. The End, also known as Death, Terminus, the termination of all life, and the coming end that waits for all and cannot be ignored. Death is the fear of death itself, as you probably guessed. It is just the fear of your life coming to an end, the fear of everything coming to an end. It manifests itself in death, bones, various forms of undead like mummies and zombies and things like that. It also has a close link to dreams and likes to manifest itself through those, usually in the form of like black tentacles a lot. Also, another interesting about The End. Earlier I mentioned that I think it was the web. Yes, it was. Two entities, they don't really have rituals. One of them being the web. The other one is the end, because, you know, death comes for us all eventually. Why have a ritual for it if it's just going to get us eventually, right? Next one. The Desolation, also known as the Lightless Flame, the Torturing Flame, the Devastation, the Blackened Earth, the Ravening Burn, and Asag, spelled A-S-A-G. Desolation. It is the fear of pain, of destruction, of loss, and like sudden, but like cruel loss, like planned out. And that part's very important in relation to the one we're going to do next. The followers of the desolation, they are enriched by killing people or destroying the lives of people who have something to live for or that have potential. Like, you know, the tarot card, destruction brings creation. That's the desolation, except without the creation part, right? Just destruction of everything you know, just crumbling down around you, right? It's a real bummer. It also manifests itself a lot as flames and fire. Like, it really likes flame. Hence, two of its names being directly related to flame. Yeah, next one. The slaughter. Also, side note, I just realized that the stranger one has been backwards for you guys the entire time. For that, I apologize. Moving on. The slaughter. It is the fear of war, of unmotivated violence. And it differs from the desolation in that this isn't like cruel and planned out. It is just violence, like plain and simple. Just completely senseless, bloodlusted violence, right? Not thought out, just violence. And it manifests itself a lot in kind of like songs, or like musical things. There's this one where soldiers that were gonna die before they went into battle, they would hear like a Pied Piper song on the wind, right? And there's also this one band that plays songs and makes everyone in the audience kill each other, right? It has a lot to do with music for some reason. Yeah, slaughter, fear of war, sudden violence, things like that. Manifests itself in music, in sudden violence, in war. Yeah, pretty simple. All right, next one, which is a surprise one. The extinction, which is the newest fear, which is why I have it added on to the side here. The extinction is the newest fear because, well, let me first get into its name, and then we can kind of get into why it's the newest fear. The extinction, also called the terrible change, the future without us, and the world is always ending. The extinction is the fear of mankind's destruction by our own hand. Think nuclear fallout, think apocalypse by our own hand, not natural disasters or anything like that. One engineered by us, like plague or something like that, right? Specifically man-made plague. Regular plague would be corruption, but yeah, extinction. Manifests itself as abandoned theme parks, or just things that humans have made that have fallen into ruin. And trash, a lot of trash, like scraps and things like that. Yeah, that's the extinction. And now, let's get into how each one ties into each other. Okay, my phone's about to die, so I'll try to rapid fire through this. Hunt is connected to flesh because they both have to deal with meat and just that, animals being hunted and then animals being flesh on a conveyor belt moving forward. They connect that way. Flesh connects to web because the same way that flesh cannot control what happens to it and things like that, and the web is all about control, they kind of have a yin-yang relationship to each other, right? Web connects to spiral because the spiral is about insanity, about the loss of control, and the web is about control. Again, yin-yang kind of operation going on here, right? Spiral connects to stranger because they both have to deal with lies and deceit. For the stranger, it's trying to fool you into believing that it is human or that they are human or something like that. With the spiral, it's about just, fooling yourself, right? Stranger has to deal with the eye. Yes, that was it. Stranger has to deal with the eye. Again, this is kind of a yin-yang operation because the stranger's very thing is that it cannot be known, right? It is always, its ritual is called the unknowing, for crying out loud. And the eye is all about knowing things. So, again, yin-yang kind of operation here. Eye is connected to vast because what uses it knowing how vast something is if you're not able to truly comprehend how vast it is, right? You could be at the top of Mount Everest, but if you think that there's But if you don't know that you're at the top, and you don't know that there's just endless sky all around you, it doesn't really work out. You know what I mean? Vast is connected to lonely. Again, I mentioned this earlier, by open spaces. The lonely, you're in an open space and you're alone. The vast, you're in an open space and usually you're alone as well. Like I said, they kind of go hand in hand. These two are connected very closely together. The lonely is connected to the dark because in the dark, you can't see anyone else. You are just, you are completely by yourself, which is how it is connected to the lonely. And dark is connected to buried because whenever you're buried, like underground or in a coffin or anything like that, usually it's dark. It's pretty dark. So again, that is how these two are connected. Buried is connected to corruption because we see this in one of the statements where this woman goes down into a well, and as she describes it getting like more and more close together, she also describes how she can like feel the moisture in the air that's laced with infection and things like that. So like, you know, tight spaces that are like crawling with infection and things like that, which again go like, you know, hand in hand with coffins and, you know, maggots and bugs crawling in and whatnot. Corruption connects to the end because whenever you get a disease or things like that, or rot is connected to death, mold is connected to death, things like that. The end is connected to extinction because they both have to deal with the end of things, whether it's just death itself or the death of purely humans and things like that. Desolation connects to the end by both having to deal with the destruction of things or the end of life. And desolation connects to extinction because they are both kind of cruel and planned out because, you know, they're made by our own hands, so they are kind of planned out by, you know, the same logic. Desolation connects to the slaughter because they are both have to deal with violence. For this, it's cruel and planned out. For this, it is senseless. And then slaughter is connected to the hunt because they both go hand in hand with war and just violence and bloodshed, right? And so, that wraps it up for our first video. That fell off. Second time, okay. Thank you so much for listening if you stayed to this point. Yeah. That wraps up the video. I guess I'll see you on the next one.